Good morning from the National Weather Service here in Raleigh, North Carolina. My name is James Morrow with your weekly impact weather briefing that covers the time period of today, June 17th through the 23rd. I'm actually joined today by one of our Hollings summer students, Adam Weiner, and he's going to actually be helping out with the presentation, so you'll hear a little bit more from him in just a bit. If you are coming to this presentation later on our social media accounts or our YouTube channel, I highly recommend going to weather.gov/Raleigh for the latest weather information, as weather can often change and change pretty rapidly, especially if you're tuning in on Wednesday or Thursday later on this week. So looking ahead at what we had across the area this morning, we had a couple of low-level clouds, especially across the southeastern coastal plain and the southern sand hills of North Carolina today. Those have since dissipated, and a few lingering upper-level clouds also. We are starting to see what looks like the beginnings to a cumulus field out there across central North Carolina, and that can be the precursor to some widely scattered to isolated showers and thunderstorms that could form later this afternoon, especially west of the Triangle region. We'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. We are expecting, just to look at this overall week's weather pattern, we're expecting showers and thunderstorms to be pretty persistent throughout this period. And be on the rise. So we're expecting coverage and possibly intensity to be on the rise, especially when it comes through tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And later on this week, we actually have a weak cold front that's going to push through the region, which could, and I say could and emphasize could for a reason, clear us out in time for next weekend. But there's still a lot of uncertainty there, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on throughout this presentation. So here's one model's input of what today might look like. You'll notice some widely scattered storms, especially across the Triad region. I think that's going to be pretty representative of what we see later on today. And as we get into Tuesday here, we're starting to see that coverage increase and possibly linger into the overnight hours into Wednesday morning. So we're expecting coverage and intensity of showers and storms to increase later on Tuesday and persist into Wednesday. Today, expect mostly just scattered to isolated showers and storms. Not everybody's going to be wet, but a few could see some showers and storms this afternoon and evening, and coverage increasing as we go on through the week. The National Weather Service's Storm Prediction Center has outlined the region mainly north of us today to be in we're just across central North Carolina at least, just in general thunder. And that means there's a chance for some isolated thunderstorms, but the intensity of these thunderstorms are not going to be strong to severe. There could be an isolated strong storm, but for the most part, just these low-end thunderstorms that will be possible. Looking at day two, which is actually Tuesday, we do have a marginal risk of severe to strong storms, especially across the central and northern Piedmonts of North Carolina. And keep in mind, that's a risk number 1 of 5 when it comes to strong to severe thunderstorms. Just a general thunder risk on Wednesday. It wouldn't surprise me to see maybe a marginal risk introduced in the days to come here, as we could see a greater coverage of storms, and there might be enough low-level shear to actually get a strong storm or two to form on Wednesday. But we'll see if that continues to trend that way in future forecasts. So basically, be on the alert for maybe an isolated strong storm on Tuesday, and definitely more in the way of coverage when it comes to Wednesday, but still some uncertainty when it comes to that forecast. Looking at the accumulated precipitation forecast throughout the week, each day is going to have some precipitation chances, with the exception of possibly Friday behind that cold front that pushes through. But these precipitation amounts aren't going to be everybody. This could be one of those setups where your neighbor may get wet, but you guys may be having to feed your water or feed your lawn or water your lawn while your neighbor's actually getting a nice little downpour to help them do that. It's just going to be those hit or miss showers and storms, especially today. Tuesday, the coverage grows a little bit, and Wednesday, we'll see an increase in coverage too. For the weekend, we are expecting some showers and storms to return to the forecast, and taking a closer look at the 7-day forecast, we could see anywhere from 1 inch to 1.5 inches across the Triad, which should see a greater number of storms through the period. But lesser coverage to the south and east, where they could only see maybe 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. And keep in mind, this is area average. Those that see multiple thunderstorms will likely see more in the way of precipitation, while those that don't see any thunderstorms will obviously not see much precipitation at all. So I'm going to pass it over to Adam, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about the river forecast for the next couple days.
Right. So looking at the river levels across central North Carolina, we can see that we are in the green, which is good. There are no rivers above flood stage at this time. Considering last week's rainfall, river levels are expected to remain steady or slowly decline through the next several days. Although there could be some rapid local rises where some river basins see heavy thunderstorms or heavy showers in the next couple of days. Moving on to the drought monitor, we can see that, or those may remember last week, there was a D0 or abnormally dry area introduced to eastern and northern portions of North Carolina as we were in a rather dry period, an extended dry period back in the early part of June and May, late part of May. But now we can see that from last week's rainfall that much of the drought area that was introduced before has been cut back into the eastern part of the state, and the area of moderate drought remains across the southeastern portion of the state as it was the previous week. Moving on to the tropical outlook, as it is hurricane season now, and will continue on for the next several months. There are no new tropical cyclones expected over the next 5 days, and the Atlantic basin should remain quiet, so there are no tropical concerns for the area.
Yeah, it's still pretty early on in this tropical season, but it's always good when you don't have too much in the way of activity. Around here, we really see that activity start to spike up, usually in the August, September, October timeframe. So we still have a few more months, and sadly, I don't think you'll be with us any longer during those months. We may be calling you back from school to help us out if one of these strong storms start to threaten us like it did in the past years. One resource I want to remind you guys of is this last year we actually implemented a local web page that focused a lot on tropical products. That is weather.gov/Raleigh/tropical. And that webpage has a lot of good tropical information on it, including a look at satellite, a look at radar, and a lot of tropical safety products. And now is the time to prepare for another tropical system. We saw 2 strong systems last year, and we all learned very well that you need to prepare not only days ahead of time, but months ahead of time to really be prepared for some of these strong systems. So I highly recommend visiting that webpage and getting ready for the tropical season now. Taking a look ahead to next week, the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, we're expecting that warmer than normal temperature trend to continue. So we have that strong Bermuda high pressure that's going to be off our coast, feeding that warm, moist air from the Gulf and the Atlantic Ocean into the area, and that's going to keep that warm and moist temperature feel across much of the region. Not really seeing much in the way of a signal when it comes to precipitation, though. We have most of the troughing is going to stay well to our north, which keeps most of the storm activity. Yeah, we're going to have daily chances of thunderstorms, probably most of the time. But when it comes to that really wet indication like we've seen much of this last year, we're really not seeing that, at least in the 8 to 14 day outlook. So expect this warm temperature trend to continue, but the precipitation will be near normal for this time of year. So just a quick look at the summary. Shower and thunderstorm chances will be on the rise this week, with maybe a brief lull Friday and Saturday behind a cold front that moves through. Near to slightly above normal temperatures are also expected to persist. Looking at the 7-day outlook, we're looking at temperatures right around 90 degrees, maybe a tick below 90 during the days where we have a lot of cloud cover early on. But for the most part, right around that 90 degree mark, or temperature a degree or two less or more, depending on if you're north or southeast of Raleigh. Slight improvement in drought conditions noted over the last week, and of course, no tropical activity expected over the next 5 days. So seeing as heat is the main primary factor in our forecast and our discussion today, we wanted to remind you that not only humans are susceptible to heat, your pet, especially if left in a car, can certainly have some negative impacts from the heat. And we all know how fast those cars can heat up. So for any heat-related information, we highly recommend going to weather.gov/heat to get a lot of the infographics and some of the things to disseminate not only to yourselves, but also to any constituents you may have. So at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and go ahead and answer